Fear and conflict. So much of our lives are about fear and conflict. And that's what we're going to be discussing today as we dive into A Course in Miracles, Chapter 2. And this is Section 6, Fear and Conflict. My name is Nicole Witt, and I am your miracle mentor today. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. And, I'll read and I'll kind of just comment as we go along. Being afraid seems to be involuntary, something beyond your own control. Yet I have said already that only constructive acts should be involuntary. My control can take over everything that does not matter, while my guidance can direct everything that does if you so choose. Okay, so first of all, who is the mind when he's talking about my control? Well, this is Jesus dictating this, channeling this through Helen Scheckman. And so the my is Jesus. He's saying, Jesus, him, my control. You can put it under my control. Okay. And he's talking about everything that does not matter. He can control everything that does not matter. And basically everything that does not matter is what we think really matters as humans, right? On this earth. Everything in this earth does not really matter. Okay, because it's not truth. It's an illusion. And then he can guide us in what does matter, which is teaching only love, because that is what we are, using our mind and consciously choosing our thoughts. And all of that, he can guide us in that. Those are the things that are really mattering here in our existence. Fear cannot be controlled by me, but it can be self-controlled. So fear cannot be controlled by Jesus. It has to be self-control. We have to do it ourselves. Fear prevents me from giving you my control. The presence of fear shows that you have raised body thoughts to the level of the mind. Okay, and body thoughts are not just what we think about as the body. They're not necessarily thoughts about pain or how we look or anything like that. Body thoughts is everything that has to do with separation. So all of the illusion are body thoughts of how we are this body in this world. So the presence of fear shows that you have raised body thoughts about things in the illusion to the level of the mind. This removes them from my control, from Jesus' control, and makes you feel personally responsible for them. So now we've taken whatever's happening, whatever we see, these body thoughts, the illusion, we've raised it, we've taken it personally, we will personal responsible for it, and then that produces guilt. Okay. So all of this illusion, everything that's happening, when we raise it to the level of the mind, we try to think about it and analyze it and give it this importance. First of all, we take it away from Jesus' control. And then, because now we've done that and now we feel responsible, like we think that we're controlling all of this and that we have any real power in the illusion as far as fixing it is going to make us feel better. We've given our power to it. And that's where fear comes from. That's where guilt comes. That's where taking things personally comes from. I do not foster level confusion, but you must choose to correct it. You would not excuse insane behavior on your part by saying you could not help it. Why should you condone insane thinking? There is a confusion here that you would do well to look at clearly. You may believe that you are responsible for what you do, but not for what you think. The truth is that you are responsible for what you think, because it is only at this level that you can exercise choice. What you do comes from what you think. Okay. So a lot of the times, we're having all these thoughts in our brain and We're just, as long as we're not acting on them, it's okay. Like I can have all these attack thoughts, I can have all these cleaning thoughts, but as long as I'm not physically doing them, then there's a part that says, okay, that's good. Okay. And we can control that. And that's kind of what a lot of kind of like behavioral therapy and stuff like that is, right? I don't know too much, but it sounds much like that. And what he's saying is, no, it's the thoughts. You need to start looking at your thoughts and controlling them because they actually are controlling what you do. Okay. What you do comes from what you think. You cannot separate yourself from the truth by giving autonomy to behavior. This is controlled by me. So this is controlled. Behavior is controlled by me, by Jesus, automatically as soon as you place what you think under my guidance. So as soon as we let go, as soon as we give up any illusion that we have of control over this, and we don't even want control anymore, because we've seen what that has led to, us trying to have control. We don't want control anymore. We freely surrender and give it up with total willingness. Now our behavior is under Jesus's guidance and everything. That's why there's those synchronicities that line up when we're in alignment. It means now we're in alignment. Whenever you are afraid, it is a sure sign that you have allowed your mind to miscreate and have not allowed me to guide it. Again, I mean, like fear is like, ooh, something is wrong. I'm scared. I'm fear. Okay, I've taken control back. So it's just like this great signal that, wake up. It's to pay attention. Something is happening here. It is pointless to believe that controlling the outcome of misthought can result in healing. When you are fearful, you have chosen wrongly. That is why you feel responsible for it. You must change your mind, not your behavior, and this is a matter of willingness. You do not need guidance except at the mind level. Correction belongs only at the level where change is possible. Change does not mean anything at the symptom level where it cannot work, right? So it's all of that. I mean, we know to a certain extent, like you can diet and you can change your behavior, you can lose the weight, but if you don't change your thinking about it, you'll probably gain the weight back, right? It's a really good example. And you can take that for anything. Changing your behavior, trying to change your behavior. And we do it all the time. I'm not just talking like about like giving something up or trying to eat better, like changing up, but we like, oh, I think, yeah, I want to feel better. I think I'll start going for a walk every day. If we continue to do that and say that that is it, why we feel bad, we might get that temporary. But what happens when it rains and we can't walk for like a week straight? We lost that high now. So nothing has really changed. Okay. So he's talking about the only real change comes when we change our thoughts. And trying to change anything that we're seeing in the world, which is a symptom of our thoughts, is useless and a waste of time. The correction of fear is your responsibility. When you ask for release from fear, you are implying that it is not. You should ask instead for help in the conditions that have brought the fear about. So, our thoughts. These conditions always entail a willingness to be separate. At that level, you can help it. You are much too tolerant of mind wandering and are passively condoning your mind's miscreation. Okay. So when we just let our mind wander on and we're thinking about everything that we don't want to happen, we're thinking about how we messed up, we're thinking about all of these things, we're just letting ourselves miscreate and miscreate and miscreate and create more of everything we say we don't want. The particular result does not matter, but the fundamental error does. The correction is always the same. Before you choose to do anything, ask me if your choice is in accord with mine. If you are sure that it is, there will be no fear. And that part of before you choose to do anything, ask me means that we have to pause. And that is something that I am personally consciously trying to implement because that's really hard. And and it's just a learning process because most of the time right now, I'd say I probably pause before I do something. Maybe I'm getting close to 50%. That's what feels good. And yeah, so that means about 50% of the time I don't. So then it's a forgiveness opportunity. Like, yeah, I didn't ask there. Probably might have turned out better if I did. Fear is always a sign of strain arising whenever what you want conflicts with what you do. Okay. And can be as big as what you want is peace and love and harmony and to go home. And what you do is the attack and complain and dig more roots into the world, right? So that's the big picture, or what you want is wholeness, and what you do leads to is perpetuate separation, right? So that's the higher level, but we play that out over and over and over again in our world where we're doing things we don't want to do. It just means you're out of alignment. Anytime you're out of alignment, like you want love, but then you behave lovelessly. Okay. This situation arises in two ways. First, you can choose to do conflicting things, either simultaneously or successively. This produces conflicted behavior, which is intolerable to you because the part of the mind that wants to do something else is outraged. Okay, so that's kind of like we go back and forth. We go back and forth. We're here for a while, we go back down. We're here for a while, we go back down. Second, you can behave as you think you should, but without entirely wanting to do so. So maybe you're nice to someone. I need to be nice to someone, even though you're inside, you're like seething. This produces consistent behavior, but entails great strain. In both cases, the mind and the behavior are out of accord, resulting in a situation in which you are doing what you do not wholly want to do. This arouses a sense of coercion that usually produces rage, and projection is likely to follow. So this rage is actually coming from our decision, but then we project it out and we make it somebody else's fault, that they're responsible for this predicament we find ourselves in. Whenever there is fear, it is because you have not made up your mind. Your mind is therefore split, and your behavior inevitably becomes erratic. Correcting at the behavioral level can shift the error from the first, where you're flipping back and forth, to the second type, which is you just do have a smiley face on and not feeling that way, but will not obliterate the fear. It is possible to reach a state in which you bring your mind under my guidance without conscious effort, but this implies a willingness that you have not developed as yet. The Holy Spirit cannot ask more than you are willing to do. The strength to do comes from your undivided decision, okay? All in. There is no strain in doing God's will as soon as you recognize that it is also your own. The lesson here is quite simple, but particularly apt to be overlooked. I will therefore repeat it, urging you to listen. Only your mind can produce fear. It does so whenever it is conflicted in what it wants, producing inevitable strain because wanting and doing are discordant. Okay, so only your mind can produce fear. So it's only the thoughts in your mind about any situation is producing the fear, not the actual situation. It's your thoughts about it and what you're making it mean. Okay. And it does this, it produces fear whenever it is in conflict, right? We're not sure about something. We go flipping back and forth. We don't know what we really want. We say we want one thing, but we act the other way, right? We're not walking in alignment. This can be corrected only by accepting a unified goal. The first corrective step in undoing the error is to know first that the conflict is an expression of fear. Okay, so all this conflict you've got going on in your mind, and whether it's only in your mind or you're actually projecting a conflict outside of you and you feel like you're in conflict with somebody outside, but wherever way it's showing up, the first corrective step in undoing that is to know that conflict is an expression of fear. Full stop. Conflict is an expression of fear, no matter where you're seeing it. Say to yourself that you must somehow have chosen not to love, or the fear could not have arisen. And now, when you've chosen not to love, that means you've chosen separation. You have chosen to act lovelessly, which is separation. Regardless of what you've done in the world as a body, it's not trying to put guilt on you, right? That would be the opposite of what the Course is saying. He's saying you've just somehow chosen not to love yourself. You're all that's here. Or the fear could not have arisen. If you're in love, you cannot have fear, remember? Then the whole process of correction becomes nothing more than a series of pragmatic steps in the larger process of accepting the atonement as the remedy. These steps may be summarized in this way. Know first that this is fear, so there's a conflict in you, or you're seeing it outside. Either way, know first that this is fear. Fear arises from lack of love. The only remedy for lack of love is perfect love. Perfect love is the atonement. And I want to tell you, like this week, as I've been reading this section every morning, there have been several times now where I've actually had my thoughts and guided and listened to it in the middle of a conflict, either in my mind or seemingly outside of it, and involving others or a situation where I would remember in the middle of it, oh, I'm going to go read this. And it really like working that process in my mind that he's giving us here in the moment of when I most need it was amazing. Yeah, I highly recommend it. I have emphasized that the miracle or the expression of atonement is always a sign of perfect respect from the worthy to the worthy. Okay, so the atonement can only be for the worthy. It's from the worthy to the worthy. So first of all, your worth is reestablished right here. The recognition of this worth is reestablished by the atonement. It is obvious then that when you are afraid, you have placed yourself in a position where you need atonement. Okay, so because if you're in fear, remember, that's a lack of love, that's a lack of knowing your worth, of accepting the love of God and feeling like you're worthy of it. So when you're feeling that way, obviously, you need to be reminded of your worth, and that's what the atonement is for. You have done something loveless, again, chose separation, having chosen without love. This is precisely the situation for which the atonement was offered. The need for the remedy inspired its establishment. As long as you recognize only the need for the remedy, you will remain fearful. However, as soon as you accept the remedy, You have abolished the fear. This is how true healing occurs. Okay, so you have to actually accept the remedy, not just know that you need it. It's always offered to you. Everyone experiences fear, yet it would take very little right thinking to realize why fear occurs. Few appreciate the real power of the mind, and no one remains fully aware of it all the time. However, if you hope to spare yourself from fear, there are some things you must realize and realize fully. The mind is very powerful and never loses its creative force. It never sleeps. Every instant it is creating. It is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. It appears at first glance that to believe such power about yourself is arrogant, but that is not the real reason you do not believe it. Okay, so he's told you in the first half of this paragraph about how powerful your mind is. You prefer to believe that your thoughts cannot exert real influence because you are actually afraid of them. This may ally awareness of the guilt, but at the cost of perceiving the mind as impotent. Okay, so now the mind has no power because we don't want, if we acknowledge our power, we're afraid of these thoughts that we have. And so instead of changing the thoughts, we just decide, oh, but I don't have any power. I'm powerless. So it doesn't matter what I think. If you believe that what you think is ineffectual, you may cease to be afraid of it, but you are hardly likely to respect it. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. Okay, so really ending with how important your thoughts are. And this last paragraph, I was instructed by guidance, which to read a lot of these paragraphs in the first person and how much more powerful that is. And so I'm going to reread this last paragraph and I'm going to read it in the first person. And, I would suggest maybe you close your eyes and do it along with me and use the I when you're reading the course. Sometimes there's perfect paragraphs where you can really make it in first person and it just makes it so much more personal. So I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Everyone experiences fear, yet it would take very little right thinking to realize why fear occurs. Few appreciate the real power of the mind, and no one remains fully aware of it all the time. However, if I hope to spare myself from fear, there are some things I must realize and realize fully. The mind is very powerful and never loses its creative force. It never sleeps. Every instant it is creating. It is hard to recognize that thought and belief combine into a power surge that can literally move mountains. It appears at first that to believe such power about myself is arrogant, but that is not the real reason I do not believe it. I prefer to believe that my thoughts cannot exert real influence because I am actually afraid of them. This may allay awareness of the guilt, but at the cost of perceiving the mind as impotent. If I believe that what I think is ineffectual, I may cease to be afraid of it, but I am hardly likely to respect it. There are no idle thoughts. All thinking produces form at some level. That's just a little bit of advice I would give you if you're looking to kind of make the experience of the course, bring it more into your daily life and make it more personal. So thank you for joining me today. The next video will be on non-section cause and effect. Love you so much. Bye-bye.